If you start hearing this, don't rush past it. Not because it sits magical, not because you treasure special by default, but because something in you paused. People scroll past hundreds of messages a day without feeling anything. You didn't. That matters. This isn't about destiny chasing you. It's about attention finding you when you weren't looking for it. Most people only listen when life is loud. Some people are called in the quiet. If you're here right now, it means the noise finally stopped long enough for you to hear what you've been avoiding. This isn't just comfort. This is a call, and attention is not random. Nothing meaningful enters your awareness by accident. That idea sounds poetic, but it's actually mechanical. Your brain is a filtering machine. At any moment, you're surrounded by noise, sounds, images, words, memories, notifications. If your mind tried to process all of it equally, you'd shut down. So it filters aggressively. What gets through that filter is not what's loudest. It's what matches something already active inside you. That's why two people can see the same message and react completely differently. One scrolls past without a second thought. The other stops, reads, feels a pull they can't immediately explain. That pull is not coincidence. It's its alignment, your attention locked onto this, because something in you is already awake, not finished, not resolved. Awake. A question you haven't answered yet. A decision you've been delaying. A version of yourself that's pressing from the inside, asking for space. This isn't about belief systems or signs from the universe. It's about how awareness works. Your mind highlights what matters before you consciously understand why it matters. Think about moments in your own life. You didn't notice certain ideas, opportunities, or warnings until you were ready to hear them. The information existed before, but it was invisible to you. Not because it wasn't there, because you weren't there. So ask yourself the uncomfortable question you usually avoid. What part of you recognized this message? Was it frustration? Was it restlessness? Was it the sense that you're doing a lot but moving nowhere? People don't stop scrolling because they're bored. Boredom accelerates scrolling. People stop because something interrupts the autopilot. Something creates friction. That friction is unresolved energy. A tension between who you are and who you know you could be. Between the life you're living and the life you keep postponing. You didn't click because this message was clever. You clicked because it touched something unfinished. Attention is not passive. It's diagnostic. It reveals where your internal pressure points are, where growth is trying to happen, but hasn't been allowed to yet. Right now, your attention is pointing at this moment and saying, look here, this matters. And here's the part most people miss noticing, is the first stage of change. Before action comes awareness. Before clarity comes disturbance. Before movement comes discomfort. If you're feeling slightly unsettled as you listen, that's not a problem. That's the signal doing its job. Your inner world doesn't prepare for change by giving you answers. It prepares by narrowing your focus, by pulling your attention toward the edge of your current life, where something new wants to form. You can dismiss this and keep moving. Many do, but understand what that choice means. It doesn't mean nothing was happening. It means you chose familiarity over growth. Attention selected this moment for a reason. Whether that reason becomes a turning point or just another ignored signal depends on what you do next. And that decision, uncomfortable as it is, has already started forming. 2. The call comes before clarity. Most people believe clarity comes first. They think once everything makes sense, then they'll move. Once the fear disappears, once the path is obvious, once the outcome feels safe, that belief is wrong. And it's the reason so many lives stay stuck. Clarity is not the starting point. It's the reward for movement. What comes first is the call. The pull. a disturbance, a sense that something is off. Even if you can't explain what or why, that discomfort you've been feeling lately isn't confusion. It's pressure building before a shift. Look at your own life. The biggest changes didn't begin with confidence. They began with unease. You felt out of place before you knew where you belonged. You felt dissatisfied before you knew what you wanted instead. You felt tension long before you understood its purpose. That's how it always works. The call doesn't arrive as instructions. It arrives as restlessness, as questions without answers, as a quiet refusal to keep pretending that everything is fine. People who wait for clarity before acting aren't being careful. They're avoiding responsibility. They want certainty so they don't have to own the risk of choosing. But growth doesn't negotiate with comfort. If clarity came first, there would be no courage involved. You wouldn't need to trust yourself. You wouldn't need to step forward without guarantees. You'd just follow a map. That's not transformation. That's compliance. The call exists precisely because clarity doesn't. It tests whether you're willing to move without external validation, whether you can tolerate uncertainty long enough to discover who you are without instructions. This is where most people turn back. They mistake the lack of clarity for a warning when it's actually an invitation. They interpret discomfort as a sign to stop, when it's a sign that something new is forming. If you're waiting for the moment where everything clicks and fear disappears, you'll be waiting forever. Fear doesn't vanish before movement. It reshapes itself after movement. The call is asking one thing from you: willingness, not confidence, not perfection, not a 5-step plan, just willingness to stop standing still. Clarity is earned through motion, through choosing even when the outcome isn't guaranteed, through acting while the mind is still unsure. That's why this feels uncomfortable. You're being asked to trust a process you can't yet see. And that's not a flaw in the system. That is the system. The call doesn't promise safety. It promises growth. And growth always demands that you step forward before you feel ready. So if part of you is saying, "I don't fully understand this yet," that's not a reason to stop. That's the exact point where movement begins. Clarity is coming, but it will not come to you sitting still. 3. You still outgrown what used to fit. Growth doesn't arrive with celebration. It arrives with discomfort. Most people think something is wrong when their life starts to feel heavy. They assume they're failing, losing motivation, or becoming ungrateful. That assumption is lazy and inaccurate. What's actually happening is expansion. You don't feel uneasy because you're broken. You feel uneasy because you're trying to stay inside a version of life that no longer matches you. The roles you used to play feel tighter now. Conversations that once felt easy now feel draining. Routines that once felt productive now feel empty. This isn't confusion. It's misalignment being exposed. Outgrowing something doesn't mean it was bad. It means it served its purpose and reached its limit. But here's the problem. People cling to what's familiar even when it restricts them. Not because it's right, but because it's known. Familiarity feels safer than uncertainty, even when it slowly suffocates you. So you stay longer than you should. You explain away the discomfort. You tell yourself to be patient, to be grateful, to stop wanting more. But the pressure doesn't goes away. It increases. That pressure isn't set punishment. It sets feedback. When growth is happening, the old structure can't contain it. The same way a body outgrows clothes, a mind outgrows environments. And if you refuse to change the environment, the friction becomes unavoidable. This is why pretending stops working. You can't unknow what you've already realized. You can't shrink back into a smaller version of yourself once awareness has expanded. And that's the part people resist the most, because outgrowing something forces a choice. Stay comfortable and stagnant, or step forward and uncertain. If things around you feel heavier instead of lighter, stop asking what's wrong with you. Ask what you've outgrown. You were not lost. You were early in a transition. And transitions always feel unstable before they feel free. The discomfort you're experiencing isn't a sign to retreat. It's a signal that you're ready for more space, even if you don't yet know what that space looks like. What no longer fits will keep pressing on you until you acknowledge it. Growth doesn't wait for permission. 4. Silence is part of the test. When life gets quiet, most people panic. They assume something is wrong because the noise has stopped. Fewer messages, fewer reactions, less reassurance, less feedback telling them who they are and whether they're doing enough. But silence is not emptiness. Silence is exposure. When external voices fade, you're left alone with your own thoughts, and that's uncomfortable for anyone who spent years outsourcing their sense of direction to other people's opinions, expectations, or approval. Silence strips away the performance. No one is watching. No one is applauding. No one is correcting you. And in that space, a question surfaces that can't be ignored anymore. Who are you when no one is reacting to you? This is why silence feels heavy. It removes distraction. It forces awareness. You can no longer drown out your own dissatisfaction with busyness or noise. Many people mistake this phase for abandonment or failure. They think the lack of attention means they're off track. In reality, it often means they're being pulled inward for recalibration. Noise keeps you reactive. Silence makes you deliberate. When everything is loud, you respond automatically. You say yes without thinking. You follow momentum instead of intention. But when things go quiet, you're forced to slow down, to listen, to confront thoughts you've been postponing. Silence reveals what was always there but never acknowledged. That's why it's uncomfortable. Because clarity is rarely gentle at first. It doesn't soothe you. It confronts you. In silence, you notice patterns. You see which relationships were sustained by convenience instead of connection. You realize which goals you were chasing because they were expected, not because they mattered. You recognize how often you adjusted yourself to stay accepted. This awareness can feel lonely, but loneliness is not the same as isolation. Isolation cuts you off from growth. Silence creates space for it. This is the part where many people self-sabotage. They rush back into noise. They fill the quiet with distractions. They reattach to anything that gives them a sense of belonging, even if it costs them alignment. They don't leave silence because it's harmful. They leave because it's honest. But silence isn't meant to last forever. It's meant to refine you before you move forward. Think of it as a clearing, a pause between versions. A moment where the old no longer fits and the new hasn't fully formed yet. If you're in that space right now, stop interpreting it as a setback. It's not a void, it's a threshold. Silence is asking you to learn how to stand without constant feedback, to trust your own judgment, to define yourself without mirrors. Once you can do that, noise loses its power over you, and when you re-enter the world, you do it with intention instead of dependency. The test isn't set whether you can endure silence. The test is whether you can use it without running away. 5. Resistance points to what matters most. Pay attention to what you keep avoiding. Not the obvious fears, not the dramatic ones. The quiet resistances, the things you postpone without a clear reason. The decisions you circle but never land on. The conversations you rehearse in your head but never have. Resistance is not random hesitation. It's information. Your mind resists what threatens the identity it's been protecting. Not because that identity is correct, but because it's familiar. Even a limiting identity feels safer than the uncertainty of change. That's why resistance often shows up right before growth. When something matters deeply, Your system reacts. Your thoughts become louder. Doubt intensifies. Excuses sound more reasonable. All of that is the mind trying to preserve the status quo. Notice the pattern. You don't resist things that don't matter. You don't overthink meaningless choices. You don't procrastinate on actions that carry no consequence. Resistance clusters around what could change your trajectory. The problem is that most people treat resistance as a stop sign. They assume discomfort means danger, but discomfort often means importance. Think about what you've been telling yourself lately. I'll do it later. Now isn't the right time. I need to be more prepared. These sound responsible, but many times they're just fear wearing a respectable mask. Preparation becomes procrastination when it never ends. If you were truly unready, the resistance would feel calm and rational. Instead, it feels charged, heavy, persistent. It doesn't go away no matter how long you delay. That's because it's not asking you to wait. It's asking you to move. Resistance doesn't want to be eliminated. It wants to be understood. What is it protecting? What would happen if you crossed it? Who would you have to become? Those are the real questions hiding underneath your hesitation. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The longer you avoid what matters, the louder resistance becomes. It doesn't disappear. It turns into anxiety, frustration, self-doubt, and eventually resentment toward your own life. People think they're avoiding pain by staying still. They're not. They're choosing a slower, quieter form of it. Growth demands friction. There is no clean transition. There is no step that feels perfectly comfortable. The moment something truly aligns with your next level, it will challenge your current one. So stop asking how to get rid of resistance. Ask what it steps pointing toward. Because the thing you're most tempted to delay is often the thing that would free you the fastest. Resistance isn't your enemy. It steps the gate. 6. You are being asked to choose, not wait. Waiting feels productive. It feels mature. It feels like you're being careful instead of reckless. But a lot of waiting isn't wisdom. It's fear disguised as patience. There's a critical difference between timing and avoidance. Timing has intention behind it. Avoidance has excuses. If you were truly waiting for the right moment, you'd feel calm, clear, grounded. But that's not what this feels like. This feels restless, heavy, repetitive, like you're replaying the same internal argument over and over. That's SEP's not waiting. That's SEP's resistance looping. At some point, delay stops protecting you and starts costing you. Opportunities don't disappear all at once. They fade quietly as energy drains and momentum stalls. You don't lose them dramatically. You just slowly move out of alignment with them. Most people underestimate this because nothing explodes. Life simply becomes duller. Days blur together, motivation weakens, and eventually stagnation feels normal. That SEP's the danger. Choosing doesn't mean rushing blindly. It means committing internally before everything feels safe. It means deciding who you are going to be even while the external details remain unclear. Movement clarifies things that thinking never will. You can analyze a decision endlessly and still feel uncertain, but the moment you act, feedback appears. Reality responds. You learn something real instead of imagining everything that could go wrong. That's why action is powerful. It collapses doubt. Waiting keeps doubt alive because nothing challenges it. If this moment is pressing on you, it's because the choice is already overdue. You've gathered enough information. You've felt enough tension. You're not missing data. You're avoiding responsibility. And that SEP's hard to admit. Choosing means owning the outcome. Waiting lets you blame circumstances. But blaming circumstances costs you agency. It keeps you small. You don't need the perfect plan. You need a direction. Even a flawed decision creates movement, and movement creates correction. Stillness creates nothing. This call is instead telling you to hurry. It's telling you to stop pretending that delay is neutral. Every day you don't choose, you are choosing by default. And default choices always lead back to the same place. You already know what this moment is asking of you. The only question left is whether you'll answer or keep waiting until the call has to get louder. 7. This call makes you responsible, not special. Being called doesn't elevate you above others. It removes your excuses. A lot of people like the idea of being chosen because it sounds flattering, but the reality is heavier than that. A call isn't a reward, it's a demand. It demands that you stop pretending you don't know better. It demands that you act in alignment even when it costs you comfort, approval, or certainty. It demands consistency when no one is watching. Responsibility is the price of awareness. Once you see clearly, you can't go back to ignorance. You can't unsee the patterns you've recognized. You can't unknow the truth you've been avoiding. From this point forward, neutrality disappears. You either respond or you resist, and resistance now comes with consequences. Not dramatic punishment, subtle decay. Self-respect erodes when you repeatedly ignore what you know you should do. Confidence weakens when action and belief drift apart. That's how people slowly lose themselves. Not through failure, but through avoidance. This call isn't asking you to feel inspired. Inspiration fades. It's asking you to be precise, to be deliberate, to stop living on autopilot. Being responsible means your choices start matching your values. Your words align with your actions. Your time reflects what you claim matters. That sips uncomfortable. It sips also freeing. Most people never experience that freedom because they prefer comfort over integrity. They wait for motivation instead of building discipline. They wait for permission instead of deciding. You don't need permission anymore. If this message resonates, it's because you're capable of more than the life you've been tolerating. And now that you're aware of that, the burden is yours. This is the part where excuses stop working. This is the part where distraction loses its power. This is the part where responsibility becomes unavoidable. You don't have to announce anything. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, but you do have to act differently. Because once you're called, staying the same is no longer neutral. It's a choice, and now it's yours. You don't need another message after this one. You've felt enough. You've thought enough. You've waited enough. This moment isn't asking for belief. It's asking for honesty. Something in you already knows what needs to change. You've known it longer than you admit. The hesitation, the discomfort, the repeated return to the same questions, none of that was random. This was the pause before movement. You can scroll away and nothing dramatic will happen. The world won't collapse. No alarms will sound. Life will simply continue the way it has, quietly, predictably, unchanged. Or you can treat this moment for what it is, a line. On one side is the version of you that keeps delaying, explaining, and waiting for certainty. On the other side is the version that acts without needing permission. This isn't about being fearless. It's about being honest enough to move anyway. You don't need to tell anyone what you're about to do. You don't need approval. You don't need to feel ready. Just don't ignore what you've recognized. Because once you see it clearly, pretending you didn't becomes the only real mistake. What happens next isn't fate. It's choice.